All right, there we
Welcome back,
go.
everybody.
How's it going, everybody? We're back.
Happy 2023. I'm Nora. This is Sto. This is Office Hours with Nora and Sto. And we come here, we show up every other week to talk about practical things that independent artists need to know. We focus on the practical and the tangible and, like getting into the real nitty gritty, focusing on artists as whole and complete people. And today we're talking about effective goal setting. But definitely go back and watch all 60 previous episodes. But Sto, how are you doing?
Doing good, doing good. Everybody, it's been a minute. We appreciate everyone coming through, joining us for our third year of Office Hours. Like Nora said, we do this every other week, and just talk about things that independent artists and creatives, entrepreneurs, etc., need to know. Both of us have been in the industry for a minute at this point, and we just like to use this platform to share our knowledge and hopefully get in front of some of you all and give some advice if we can.
So before we get into today's topic, I was thinking about something because we took pretty much like all of December, most of January off. For those of you who are like watching this in real time, it's January 24th. This is our first episode. So like we took a chunk of time off and nothing terrible happened. And I want to stress that. And we talk about this in some of our like mental health episodes, but I know that there's so much pressure for creatives and like entrepreneurs and stuff that like, if I take a break, everything will fall apart. And I think I just want to role model the fact that we took a break and now we're back. And like nothing happened, like nothing happened. And so for those of you who feel that pressure, I just really want to amplify that a little bit, that like, it's cool. This is not linear work. It's like ebbs and flows, ups and downs. And so no shame, nothing wrong. It's not going to like stop your whole career if you stop and take a break. And I just like use me and Sto as your example because we literally practice what we preach.
Yeah, and I think I haven't figured out how to like word this out as an episode, but like there's always been this pressure to constantly release music, constantly be putting stuff out. And I think now it comes down to like a lot of people are trying to chase momentum and think they always have to be going up, 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 up. And it's just like you can take a break and relax, and when you get back to it, still continue the growth and journey that you were on before. So yeah, definitely, especially in this case where we've been at this for a couple of years now. Like we've taken multiple breaks throughout our tenure here on YouTube, and for the better every time.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm making a mental note because I do think an episode on like constant output or like we'll find the wording around it, but I think that would make a good episode. So if that's something y'all want to see, let us know in the comments below. So before we talk about effective goal setting, Sto, do you make New Year's resolutions? Do you have 2023 goals? Like how do you approach stuff like this?
I definitely make goals. Things are way different than, a few years ago, where I took the whole idea of New Year's resolutions very seriously, and the idea of it rather, in terms of staying hold to it, that's a completely different story. But this idea that like every year I'm supposed to, add stuff to my list, and most importantly, at least in my case, was if I derailed off of it, or if I didn't quite stick to it the way that I wanted to, I'm a failure and I didn't do it right, and all this other stuff. And we're gonna get all into that. But now goal setting is more like, I mean, first off, it's a constant thing. It's not just a New Year's thing.
Right.
But second,
hold on. Before we get into that stuff, I'm curious, and I didn't tell you I was going to ask this question, so I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. But are there specific goals that you're setting, or specific intentions that you, Sto, are setting for 2023 that you, and maybe you don't want to share, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but that you are sharing, that you are, what am I trying to say? Are there specific goals
sharing
that you're making that you are comfortable sharing?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just more general stuff. I just want to do better, be better. Work out more where I can, eat better where I can, stuff like that. Um, not let certain things get to me. Kind of, it's stuff like that. It's not necessarily like this, like marquee list, I guess, as like I used to. I feel like before I used to, I want to read 100 pages every day, and just all this other stuff. So yeah.
I think for me, I used to have like lots and lots of goals. And now I'm like, these are the 3 things I really give a fuck about.
Yeah.
And so that makes it seem more manageable. But really for me, like my goal this year is ease. Like that's my
What?
word, ease.
Oh, ease.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my word, that's my intention. That's like what I want to invite in, that's what I want to put out. So I don't know. We have an episode coming up where we check in about goals. I think it's like episode 64 or 65. So let's see how that's going. Ask me about it then. But for today, that's the intention.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, well, and I mean, I don't know where you're trying to go with the episode, but I think it goes into, there's nothing wrong with like setting goals, but I don't think it has to be. And I guess the thing is, and I don't know, we'll see like what our processes are. I don't think it has to be this like rigid kind of confined, like you have to have these type of goals, and if you deviate from that a little bit, or if you stumble a little bit on that pathway, like you blew it. Like because how many times do we hear, like especially in like specifically like news media, like this percentage of people didn't stick to their New Year's resolutions, and this is like that's not something we should really even be.
But here's why, right?
Yeah.
Why do most people don't set the right goals,
Right.
and don't set their goals correctly? So,
Right.
and that's part of what we wanted to break down for you all today. So I think couple things. One is when you're setting a goal, you want to make sure that you're setting a goal that's in your control. So most
Right.
artists will set goals that are like, I want to stream 80 million views, and I want to perform at Coachella, and I want to, like, amazing. Those are great things if that's important to you that you want to do. But as goals, those things are not in your control.
And why? But why not? Because like, how many artists do we work with? That's like, my goal is 100,000 followers, X amount of streams and stuff like that. Why isn't that necessarily?
You can't control what other people do. You cannot control if someone's going to follow you. You cannot control if someone's going to press play. You cannot control, like, not in your control. So a lot of people set what are called outcome goals, but the outcome is not, you can't control it. It's not
right.
So what I would invite folks to think about is, how can you set goals that are fully in your control? And oftentimes that's what we call performance goals. So the difference is, rather than saying, I will perform at Coachella this year, you say, I will reach out to 3 promoters every month. Whether or not you perform at Coachella, it's a great intention, it's a great vision, right? And I think that's often the difference, is people confuse goals with visions. So it's a great vision to have, but in terms of goals, what is it that you can commit yourself to doing regularly, or that you can take action of? So that's the first thing. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. I was cutting you off. Go ahead.
Well, I have a whole bunch of stuff, so you can cut me off if you need to.
Well, so all I was going to say is, like, to be clear about that point, and I think like this is a lot of work that we even do with a lot of our clients, kind of intentionally, to be like, okay, like there's nothing, because here's the thing, we're not trying to say don't shoot for 1 million streams, don't shoot for X amount of followers. There's nothing wrong with having that, like, be a
vision and intention.
Exactly. But like Nora said, the point is something that you can actually take action on, something that you can do to head it. Because like, you can put all this work in and release all this music. That still doesn't control whether or not someone presses play or clicks to follow. But like Nora said, things like hitting up venues, things like networking with other artists, or even like just sending an extra communication to the people that you collaborated with. Like all that stuff pushes the needle forward while simultaneously giving you actionable items that can get you to that Coachella or a million subscribers down the line. But I do feel like sometimes in our line of work, there's this instant, I want 1,000 or I want 1,000,000 or I saw so-and-so or this. And it's just, it's one of the easiest ways to kind of derail yourself off of the journey that you were, embarking on in the first place.
Yeah.
So we're not saying that you shouldn't shoot for those things.
No,
we're never saying that.
That's like your vision.
Exactly.
And your performance goals are really like the action plan that's going to help you get there. And there's so many things you can do to get there.
Right.
The goals that we're talking about today are really the things, and this is part 2. What are the things you're actually excited about doing? There's this concept of miswanting. And miswanting means you think you want what you actually don't want. And that comes from white supremacy and patriarchy and capitalism and all these things that tell us what we think we should want. So we make goals about it and then we never do it. So like exercising is a great example. A lot of us don't want to exercise, or the way, we don't want to run 8 miles, whatever it might be.
Ooh.
I know, right? Who wants to do but we think exercise more should be a goal we set for ourselves. So we make that the goal, and then because we don't care. I love exercising. So like I'm weird like that, me and my boxing gloves, but a more like true to life example for me is I had Get a Website on my to-do list for literally years. And a lot of you have heard me talk about this. I don't care. I don't care about a website. It's not, I know Sto's going to kill me. It's just not like my link tree does what I need it to do. I'm great with relationships. Like was not exciting to me, was not meaningful to me, was just none of the things.
All right. What is that? It's utterly useless, pointless. I can't even believe this day.
Or I know. Look at that. I know. I'm so serial.
She just kept going. She wasn't just like, it's not something that's really on my to-do list. She was like, I don't know. It's not in my mind. I don't care about it. It's pointless. I want to step on it.
I'm not trying to pick on you. I'm not trying to pick on you. What I want to say is because that's that example of the miswanting. Because I convinced myself that I should have a website. And when I actually took a moment to stop and say, do I actually want this? Do I actually need this? Is this as important to me as, for me personally, is this as important to me as other things? It just wasn't.
Right.
And so rather than, and this is Sto, what you mentioned earlier, that feeling of like, dang, I didn't meet my goals. I didn't do it.
Yep.
It wasn't because I'm a bad business person or, like I don't know how to use technology or whatever it might be. It was that it was the wrong goal for me. Mm-hmm. So what happened? Instead, I took website off, got rid of it. I put newsletter on my goal list where I committed to sending a certain number of newsletters. And I love my newsletter. I love writing. I love that form of interaction. I love when people write me back and and I exceeded my newsletter goal. So that's why, like, I'm not like shitting on news, like not,
Right. But you have to do what works for you.
You have to find the thing that works for you and the thing that you actually want and the thing that actually means something to you. And this is hard because there's so many messages, especially as entrepreneurial creatives, there's so many messages we receive about what you should do or what you should have or what you should want. And so there's a lot of work in separating one piece from the other. So if part 1 is really getting clear about what's in your control, part 2 is really getting clear about what you actually want to spend your time, energy, resources, et cetera, on.
And I think it's super, like, again, for me, what was extremely important for this episode is like the feeling of, okay, I didn't exactly accomplish my goal, therefore my value or my self-esteem or confidence or whatever is less. Like, it's just not true. You just, like Nora said, maybe we set the wrong goal for ourselves. That doesn't make us bad consultants, bad organizers, and stuff like that. It's we have to figure out again what works for us. I think that's so important. There's, like Nora said, there's so many forces and publications and powers that be or whatever that are telling us that we're supposed to do things a certain way or take this certain path. But that's just, especially now more than ever, that's just not the case. And so again, there's nothing wrong with challenging yourself. We're not saying not to challenge yourself or anything like that. But, and again, I'm speaking from my own personal experience. I used to be so bad at like, all right, I set this goal, I'm going to knock it out. And then the minute I, derailed from it, I'm like, well, damn, that was a waste. And I can't even believe I did all that stuff. And now I'm a failure and have to, rebuild from there. But that's not true. So be patient with yourself and the process. It doesn't, none of us are perfect. We're all growing here and stuff like that. Like these goals are meant to kind of put us in the right direction. We don't have to be perfect.
So we talked about performance goals. We talked about miswanting. The third thing is setting goals that are structured. So some of you might have heard of like SMART goals or smarter goals. Essentially, that's what this is. You want to be specific. The difference between I want to travel and I want to go to Greece for 6 days in May is huge. I want to travel is so broad and it doesn't give you anything to start working on. It doesn't anchor you. It doesn't help you focus. Travel where? How far? For how long? When? It gives you more questions than answers. But if you say, I want to travel to Greece in May for 3 days, okay, now you have a destination. You know where to buy your tickets to. You know when you want to go. It gives you a deadline, a timeline. So when you're thinking about those goals, those in your control goals that we talked about earlier, don't be afraid to give yourself some numbers around it or some deadlines around it every week or every day or every month. Like give yourself a time frame because that will help with the accountability piece. If you don't do it, that's okay.
Right.
But it helps give you some structure so that the goals don't feel so amoebus that you can't pin them down and get into action. You want them to be actionable in that way.
And the thing is, you can break it down. That's something that I really like to do when it comes to goals. Because like Nora said, like if you put down like, all right, I want like using Nora's, like I want to go to Greece in May and stuff like that. If you just leave it at that, there's nothing wrong with leaving it at that. But for sometimes for people like me, that's just like, oh God, like what? I don't even know where to start with that. Like, if you slow down and break it down into steps, and like Nora said, even like mini deadlines, it doesn't have to be, well, I have to get my ticket by insert here to make it to May. Like you can break it down even further. Well, today I should research places that I want to visit to make sure I have an actual plan. The next day, maybe I'll look at actual flights and stuff like that. Third day, maybe I'll, figure out how to budget that stuff so I can make sure I have everything. You know what I mean? Like you break it down so that it's not this huge daunting task in front of you that like, again, at least for me, like it could be something simple as like, I don't know. For me, it's sometimes like writing assignments. Like when I have to do writing for other people, I have to break it down. Like, okay, well, I don't have to write the whole thing today. I can do a paragraph today. I can do a paragraph in a couple days or whatever, and go from there. So breaking down your goals into more, yeah, something like that. I can't remember. My mom used to tell me like you can't concentrate long enough to do something big. So break it down so that you feel like you've accomplished something every step of the way and stuff like that. So
I do want to make sure, like sometimes what happens then is people turn all their action steps into goals. And then you have this like
right.
Like your goals are not your to-do list.
Right.
So there's goals and then there's the things you need to do to make that goal a reality. And sometimes you want to set goals for, like I had a goal the other day where I had to do something. Actually, I did this last week. I had a goal to meditate like 7 days in a row, right? Like you can sometimes you set like small goals for yourself, or sometimes you set like, I'm going to run until I hit the stop sign and then I'll stop running, or whatever it might be.
Right.
But I don't want you kind of today. I think what we're talking about like are year-long goals, or like those big goals you really want to achieve in the next like 365. And I don't want you to lose that in the mundaneness of like, my goal is to get all my grocery shopping done today, or
Right.
these goals, I want them to be, they should be things that you're like excited about, enthusiastic about, that, and put them somewhere where you see them. Like write it down, put it on your whiteboard, or write it down and like put it in your journal, so that you should feel like a little kick when
Right.
you're working towards these goals. Otherwise, these, not to say they don't have a place in your life or in your career, but these aren't these kinds of like shifting, like life shifting goals that we're talking about. And I do want to clarify, we're talking a lot about creative goals, professional goals, entrepreneurial goals, but you might also want to set personal goals for yourself. And
Right.
those have a little bit of a different structure. But those are not any less valid than what we're talking about today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so, yeah, somehow we've already managed to come up at 20 minutes. But, when it comes to goal setting, first off, I think I do think there's a lot of, okay, first off, I want to say there's a lot of like between capitalism, white supremacy, and all that stuff. There's a lot of others, I guess, out there saying how you're supposed to handle your goal setting and chasing your goals. And I think that's really what we want you to walk away with too, is like, you can do it your own way. It doesn't have to be, again, this rigid, like, this is how you do it. This is how you're supposed to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And I think that's why it's so important to find what you want to do in terms of goal setting. Like it's, and it's crazy to think of, because a lot of goal setting that we've, as we've been taught, it's been goals that are more focused on capitalistic gains and all this other stuff. And so I think with this conversation specifically, like we're trying to change that narrative to where those goals should be focused on yourself. It should be things you want to do. It shouldn't just be like, oh, I want to hit, top 10 in my, employee of the month or whatever. Like that's cool or whatever, but like we want you chasing your goals, I guess, is what we're getting at. And sometimes I think that requires like kind of a shift in thinking about the definition of a goal versus what we've been taught.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. The other piece is like, you don't have to do this alone. And something I would invite you, so like, hopefully you're watching this episode, you're like writing down, thinking about your goals. The other thing I would invite you to do is find an accountability buddy. Find some, like, I started this episode, I said, I want an ease. And then I told you, when we do our check-in episode, check in with me and see how I'm doing about ease, right? So one is to have an accountability buddy who will either like check in on you, or you have time where you're like doing the thing together, or don't be afraid. It's a great way to engage your fans. Like, let your audience know, my goal this year is to do 1 reel a week. If I don't do it, y'all hold me accountable. Or, and then
now you're getting them involved.
Yeah, get them involved, or whatever it might be, right? To share that process. So the accountability is one piece. And the other piece is reflecting and checking in with yourself 6 months from now. Do I still want this goal? How is it going? What do I need to change? And that's the part that I think, Sto, you've been talking a lot about this episode, is like, be gentle with yourself, be compassionate with yourself. Things change in a year, like so much can shift. And so making that part of your practice is look at your goals, make sure you still want them, see how it's going. What do you need to shift? What do you need to change? And
sorry, this headset is freaking me out. I don't know what's going on here.
Sorry, that was just random. But yeah, so make sure you want it, find yourself an accountability buddy. Don't be afraid to, reach out, ask for help, and then check in with yourself about your goals and reevaluate. You should constantly be evaluating and reevaluating your goals, and also like what you're doing to make those goals happen.
And again, like, things change as you're, going along this journey and whatnot. Like, it doesn't have to don't put yourself down for changing the goal. Don't put yourself down for realizing, damn, maybe I don't want this anymore. Like, there really is nothing wrong with that. But I think we get taught, like, don't give up and never surrender and all that stuff. So
Right. Because I think that's really important. Like, it's perfectly okay to change your mind. It's also 1,012% perfectly okay to quit. And I think you're right. A lot of us have been raised with only quitting is for losers and like all that kind of nonsense, which actually is so disrespectful to yourself and is designed to keep you just constantly producing, going without stopping to think about, how do you feel? Is this serving you? Is this helping you?
right.
So it's perfectly, and not just in this context, but like in relationships, in work, like this is a message that we receive so often. So it's okay to quit. It's actually good for you. I actually have a whole newsletter about this. Quitting is actually really, really good for you. If something's not serving you, throw it away and walk away. And then that opens you up to have time, energy, capacity for the thing you actually do care about. So, sorry, I went on a tangent, but it's something like, it's such an important thing. And we should probably do a whole episode about that.
Yep.
By the way, if as you're watching, please tell us in the comments if there are episodes you'd like us to do, if there are topics you would like us to do episodes on, because we want to give you information that y'all need. So don't be afraid to drop those in the comments.
Absolutely. Here we go. Almost another 10 minutes have gone by, almost a half hour. But either way, episodes like these, I think, are important just because of again, we're heading into a new year. I know a lot of us, myself included, have goals that we're trying to hit. But I really do think it's important to like be patient with yourself and be patient with the process as you're going along through this, and just don't be too harsh on yourself. Like, it's okay to challenge yourself and whatnot, but some of y'all be being super brutal to yourselves on your goals when you're already doing incredible, legendary, historical things that have literally never been done. So don't beat yourself up over it.
Well, and let me say this. I think, we talk a lot about what we want to do, but to your point, so many of you are doing amazing, amazing things. And sometimes you do things that are so completely unexpected.
Right.
And so this is why I really think everybody should have your Shine page, like, or Shine book, or write down not what you want to do. There's a place for that. But keep track of all the things that you're doing.
You have done. Yeah, exactly.
And whether it's like, I took my first boxing class, or I headlined Coachella, like whatever it is. I don't know why Coachella.
Whatever it is, went to your first conference, studied for the big exam.
Went to bed early, meditated, cooked, whatever it is.
You did that.
And we focus so much on, especially in like capitalism's grind culture, where it's like on to the next and on to the next. Like on days where I'm struggling with like focusing, I don't write a to-do list. I write a things I got done list. Yeah. And I just write down, like, here's what I did today. Got up, ate breakfast, sent 4 emails, like what. And so, yes, there's goals, but also you're doing so much as you're trying to get those goals. Celebrate it, write it down, acknowledge it, sit with it. So yeah, that's my reminder that this is a great time to set up your Shine page.
All right, y'all. As we come up on the half hour, I'm trying to do a better job with this outro. See how this goes. But let us know, seriously, down below. Let us know what your goals are for the year, how you're trying to accomplish them. And again, if there are any ideas that you have for things you'd like us to cover in future episodes, please let us know. And honestly, here's my big ask. Share this episode with someone, or an episode, any of our previous episodes with someone, or watch it with someone. Um, and of course, hit the subscribe button. We have some things planned this year. We want to really utilize our resources here on YouTube because there's over, I think we're over 560 now, I think, or something like that, which is really incredible. I feel like I say this almost every other week, but I never thought we'd be here, and I'm just thankful that you all allow us to hop on your screens for a few minutes and talk about some things. But make sure you leave that like too, because here's the thing, that like helps us in the grander scheme of the YouTube overlords. Okay. We're trying to get suggested to other people that are looking for advice like this. So if you could just hit that for us, that'd be great. But yeah, Nora, anything else before we get up out of here?
Tell a friend to tell a friend. But no, we're here every first and third Tuesday. Our episodes are live so we can have that audience interaction. Do something good for yourself, do something good for your community, and we'll see y'all next time. Bye.
Peace.